Hello, friends. I hope you're out wandering through nature, exploring the natural world around you. Do you enjoy writing about your wanderings? Nature journaling is an awesome, fun way to remember all the adventures you have taken and how you felt during those journeys. If you're looking for some beautiful journals to keep track of all your wanderings, I have several available on Amazon, including some guided journals for children. Start your journey in journaling by clicking on the link in the show notes. Keep exploring the nature around you and keep journaling all your wanderings. Hello, friends, and welcome to the podcast. This is Paul, and I am in my own backyard doing some exploring. I hope you've been outside doing some exploring in your yard. And this time of year, if you have been out in your yard exploring, I bet you've been finding some pretty interesting things. And I actually just found what I'm looking for. I got tons of it in my yard because I keep, if you're not familiar, let me backtrack a little bit. If you're not familiar with my property that I've talked about, I have 12 acres and it's mostly open field. Part of it is wooded, and our house is about a third of the way back on the 12 acres. It's quite a deep lot, but we try to keep it for the wildlife. So like around my pond, we have a half-acre pond. I keep most of it unmowed because the frogs absolutely love it. And we have an old farm pond on the back of the property that's all filled in with cattails and all, and I'm not even trying to clear it out. It's like the frogs love that. The wildlife loves it. So we try to keep our property as natural as possible. And we get a lot of birds here. We get a lot of wildlife. So when I'm walking through, we do have trails cut on the property. As I'm walking along, I'm actually looking in the taller grasses, and the goldenrod is pretty tall right now, but it's not in bloom, so that's in the fall. You'll get the beautiful yellow colors. Beautiful. Our field is all yellow and purple in the fall. But this time of year, when I've got all these taller grasses and other plants growing up, it's like I look for the little piles, I guess you could call it, of spittle. Yeah, looks like spittle. Have you come across that in your yard? Hopefully you have some in your yard. Usually on taller plants is when you find it. But I have seen it on shorter plants too. But if you haven't seen it in your yard, get out somewhere where there's taller grasses and take a look for it. Spittle. It looks like some animal came along and spit all over the plant in the middle of the night. Well, it's not actually spit. Okay, what it is there's a tiny little nymph. Okay, we're talking insects here. So you've got a tiny little nymph that is hiding underneath all this foam that's on the plant. And this tiny little nymph is what we know as a spittlebug, although some people will call it a cuckoo spittle, because the same time of year, this is May, June in the Northeast here, May, June, that's when the nymphs are out and they're creating this spittle, this foam all over the plant. And that's the same time of year that the cuckoos are coming through. So you start hearing the cuckoo birds, the yellow-billed cuckoo, the black-billed cuckoo. So some people have named it that. Other people call it frog spittle or frog spit. Some people call it snake spit. So it's got some different names. But the common name for this insect, this nymph, is the spittlebug. I have some spittle right in front of me, and I am going to move it aside and see if I can find the actual spittlebug in there. Yeah, he's hiding in the spittle. And there's quite a bit of it here. And yep, there he is. Tiny little nymph. So there's 3 stages to the spittlebug's life. Of course, you have the egg, and the egg is actually laid in the winter time, in the fall, winter, and it overwinters on the plant. And then in the springtime, like I said, May, June, that's when the egg hatches and you get these nymphs. Now the nymphs will stay for a couple of months on the plant, and they create this foam, this spittle as we're calling it. They basically morph, metamorphosis, okay, they morph into the adult. Now that goes through several stages of splitting open their skin, and they get bigger, and that's how they grow, and then they eventually just get into their adult stage. Now the adult stage has wings. They are approximately, in the adult stage, they are approximately 4 to 10 millimeters long. That's up to about a half an inch, which is very tiny, and that's actually pushing the envelope, saying half an inch. They're usually much smaller as an adult. And they do have wings as an adult. They don't in the nymph form. The nymph form cannot get away from danger by flying away, which the adults can with these wings. They actually have 4 wings, so 2 sets of wings. We usually see them when they're on a plant with their wings folded up on their back. And when they have their wings folded up on their back, it covers the other wings, the smaller set of wings. So anyhow, as the adult, we give them a different name. And you may have heard this, the froghopers. Yeah, they're known as a froghopper in the adult form. And the froghopers get their name for a couple of reasons. There's different stories about how they got the name froghopper. Some people say it's because they hop like frogs, which they do. Others say that they look like frogs, which they kind of do too. You see, the froghopers, by the way, let me get into a little more background here. The froghopper are from the order Hemiptera. Okay, Hemiptera are the true bugs. Okay, so if you ever hear that term Hemiptera, it's the true bugs. Now, there are 3 suborders of true bugs, and froghoppers are the suborder, and hopefully I get this pronounced right. You know me with the Latin terms. Acinaricia, okay, which are basically the sapsuckers. And that includes your cicadas, which most people are familiar with, the cicadas. The other 2 suborders are Heteroptera and Sternarincia. In the family Cercopidae, okay, those are the froghoppers. That's their family. Okay, so once again, the order is Hemiptera, the family is Cercopidae. Now, Cercopidae, there's about 60 species of froghoppers in the U.S. There are hundreds of species around the world, so there's a lot of different types of froghoppers. They, like I said, they're very small. They're mostly drab brown. There is one that it's very bright red and black in color. It's very beautiful. But most of them, they just want to blend in. They don't want anyone to notice them. So they're mostly a drab brown. Their head is kind of pointed in shape. It goes to a point at the ends. It's a tapered body. So it kind of resembles a tiny little miniature insect frog. That's where froghopper gets from. Okay? And they almost look like a miniature frog that's ready to hop. Yeah, ready to hop away. You know how when a frog crouches down and they're ready to hop? No, that's the froghopper for you. Now the froghoppers, the adult stage that we're talking about here, okay, they can actually jump 70 centimeters. That's in America here, 2.5 feet. And you may think, well, that's not very far. Think about how small this guy is. Yeah, he is very small. 2.5 feet, 2.5 feet, that's about 100 times their body length. 100 times their body. Can you imagine trying to jump 100 times your body length? Not easy to do, is it? No, I don't think you could. The reason for them jumping is basically to get away from danger. Remember, it's a tiny little bug. Lots of animals eat them. They're prey to snakes, to other insects. They're prey to birds. Not a lot of mammals will eat them, but I mean, if they found them, they might. So they have to hop away from the danger. And that's why they have this amazing feat of, hopping about 100 times their body length. Now, another really interesting thing about their hopping, they've got all these muscles built up in their legs. And these muscles are very powerful, very strong. They can actually accelerate when they are pushing off the ground. They accelerate at about 4,000 meters per second. That's about 1,312 feet per second. If you want it in miles per hour, that's about 895 miles an hour they accelerate at. That is amazing. Their G-force, put in another aspect here. The G-force is about 400 Gs. That's 80 times, 80 times greater than that of a rocket launching into space. Pretty amazing bugs here. Yeah. So you've got these froghopers that can just accelerate faster than a rocket, go jumping 100 times the length of their body. And, we just look at these little guys as, oh, yeah, he hopped about 2.5 feet. It's like, no, there's more to it than that. Yeah, these guys are just amazing. Now, I talked about how their head was kind of pointed, okay, and it's pointed because at the end of their head is a kind of like a beak. So they have this mouth part. Okay, it's a beak, it's a mouth part. And do you remember I said they're in the family of the sapsuckers? Now, I'm not talking sapsuckers as in birds. I'm talking sapsuckers as an insect that is sucking the sap out of a plant. So they go onto a plant stem and they use their mouth part, this pointed beak, to bore into the stem of the plant, and they draw the sap out. What they're grabbing is the xylem. Now, if you remember from past episodes or from your science classes in probably middle school, plants have the cambium layer underneath the bark. And that cambium layer is where all of the movement is happening in the plant. You have the photosynthesis happening, and the sugars are being created through photosynthesis, and that works its way down the phloem. Okay, so the phloem, little tiny like straws through this cambium layer, little tiny straws through the cambium layer. It's flowing down those, goes into the roots, and it gives the plant energy. It grabs nutrients from the soil, and the nutrients go up through the stem of the plant through the xylem. So the xylem is going up. So these bugs are getting into that xylem to get the nutrients that the plant is actually using. I actually have a really big patch of the spittle on this one. I bet there's more than one in there. Yeah, sometimes there can be more than one spittlebug inside one of these foamy patches on the plant. So, and it can be from different species too, which is pretty interesting. Yeah, the section I'm at in my field right here, there's just a lot of it on a lot of different plants here, but there's some that have just a huge amount. I mean, this one here, it goes down about 2 inches on the entire stem, and it's puffed out quite a bit. It's probably about, I'm going to say 3/4 inches thick in diameter. So, wow. Yeah, that's a big patch, which usually tells me that there's more than one in there, but it can just be one making all that, and I'll get to how that works. But anyhow, so they have these mouth parts. They pierce into the stem of the plant. They suck out all this, the nutrients, the sap of the plant, and they're focusing on, like I said, the xylem vessels. That's where the nutrients are. Then they get all those nutrients. Now this foamy mass that I'm seeing right now in front of me, hopefully you have seen in your yard or when you've been out hiking somewhere, this foamy stuff, okay, this foamy mass is actually a combination of this sap that they are expelling from their body, and they're not expelling it out of their mouth. They're actually expelling it out of their backside. So what this foam is basically urine. Yeah, it's the urine from what they've been eating, all the sap. So it's actually a combination of the insect's urine and air. So they add air. They have this like mechanism in their bodies that adds air to it. It pumps air into their urine, and it causes this sap to come out, this foamy sap. Now there's also some chemical that's in there. This chemical makes the sap sticky, which helps it adhere to the plant. Otherwise, it would probably just run right off the plant. So this foam sticks to it, and it can hold up to some pretty heavy weather conditions like wind, rain. I've come out right after a heavy rain, and I still see them on the plant because that sticky substance that's added to the urine and the bubbles or the air, you know, it actually makes it denser. I mean, when I was poking at this stuff with a stick, I don't use my fingers after I learned that it's actually the bug's urine. But as I'm poking it with the stick, well, there's a plant with 2 sections. So the upper part has some spittle on it, and the lower section has like a 3-inch long piece of spittle on it. Yeah, quite a bit in this area. So that's how the spittle stays on there. It doesn't, you know, just disappear. Now, the urine is produced by digesting the sap that the spittlebug sucks out of the plant. Okay. The amount of urine passed by a spittlebug is enormous. It's actually about 280 times the insect's body weight. That's how much of this urine, this, you know, liquid is coming out of the bug's body. So it's like 280 times its body weight. If you can't wrap your head around that, put it in perspective, it's about, it would be as if the human was expelling about 2,700 gallons of urine every single day. Yeah, you would be dehydrated. You wouldn't be able to do it. No, humans cannot do that. So 2,700 gallons of urine each day in a human. So that is what these spittlebugs are doing. They're expelling, you know, about 280 times their own body weight. Now, when they secrete this, it's an acrid liquid, okay, plant sap. It's not spit, like I said, it's coming out their backside. It has, I've never tasted it, I'm taking their word from all my research. It has a really bad taste to it, which discourages other animals from trying to dig through it to find the spittlebug. Yeah, so that's part of the protection of it. So all of this is happening almost like a cappuccino maker. So starts to excrete this bubbly, sticky liquid, gets on the plant, and it gets all over the bug. And that's the whole reason for the spittle, is to basically hide the bug. Okay, it's their protection. Almost like bubble wrap. It's protecting this tiny little nymph from predators. Remember, they're pretty much defenseless. They don't have the wings yet. They don't have the long, powerful legs that the adult has. So they need to hide. And they hide in the spittle. They're not hiding from me very well. I find the spittle all over the place. But once again, it tastes bad, so most animals avoid it. And most animals that are coming along, they see this foam on this plant. They don't realize that there's some insect, yummy, delicious insect, underneath there. So, like I said, it's like bubble wrap. It protects the animal, hides them. Natural enemies for them: birds, frogs, spiders, other insects. And the spittle actually helps to make them invisible to all those animals there, so that they are protected. It's camouflage, we'll put it that way. It also serves other purposes too. So it's not just hiding them, it also protects them from any variations in moisture and temperature. So if we get a cool night, or like they're predicting a heat wave coming up this coming week here in Western New York, and when it gets really hot next week, they will have this bubble wrap around them that's going to moderate the temperature. It's going to keep them cooler. And like last night, it got a little chilly here, and so it's going to keep them warmer in there. So it's a temperature and moisture regulator. Okay, during this heat wave we're supposed to get next week, no rain. They were calling for thunderstorms yesterday, and weathermen, it's tough to predict the weather. So it didn't rain at all. We've had a little bit of a dry spell here for the past couple of days, and this spittlebug is actually, staying moist inside this protective bubble that he's in. So it's basically protecting them from any variations in moisture and temperature. It keeps them at a status quo. It's like us being in our house with the air conditioner going when it's too hot, or the dehumidifier, so we regulate our houses to keep us comfortable. And this guy's doing the same thing, but he's doing it with this spittle. There is an insect that always looks for the spittlebugs. It's a parasitic wasp. A lot of people ask me when I talk about spittlebugs, it's like, oh, aren't they the ones that the parasitic wasps get after? And yeah, they do. They look for them. A parasitic wasp basically will pierce into an insect, and they lay their eggs inside that insect. And then when the babies hatch, they have food right around them. They'll eat their way outside, So they're eating away the inside of the insect, and it kills the insect, obviously, but the parasitic wasps, because of this slippery surface, they have trouble being able to hang on to it and find, dig through to find the nymph. So it's protection against, those parasitic wasps as well. Now, when the adults don't use this. Their defense is that jumping, or flying away with their wings, but they emit this yellow liquid when they're threatened, which supposedly, they're still doing research on it, but it supposedly deters any predators. It keeps the predators away, so it deters them. But back to the spittlebugs, another thing that they will do with this mass of bubbles is in emergencies. Okay, they normally have a snorkel, we'll call it that, this tube that goes out through the spittle so that they can get air. Okay, so they have this tube on their body. It goes up through this spittle mass, and they can get air there. But If it's an emergency, which I don't know what would constitute an emergency, I tried to find that information, but they have done research and they found that maybe bad air quality outside this protective bubble mass, but they will actually pierce the bubbles and extract air out of the bubbles as well. So, if that snorkel isn't working because the air is not good, research has found that they actually will pierce the bubbles, but only in extreme situations. I also get asked, and I was talking to my wife about doing this podcast and telling her some of the interesting things about spittlebugs. And she says, well, does that harm the plant if they're sucking the xylem out? I mean, the plant needs that xylem for nutrients. If you have 1 or 2 spittlebugs on a plant, it's not really harming them. Okay, it's not harming the plant. The plant is still getting the nutrients it needs. If you do maple sugaring, or if you listen to my episode on maple sugaring, I don't remember which episode it was, but it was a while ago. Usually I do maple sugaring around March. So I think it was last year in March I did a maple sugaring episode. But anyhow, when I tap the trees, depending on the size of the trunk, depends on how many taps I put into the tree. You can't just put 20 taps on a tree that only has a 1 foot diameter. I mean, the buckets are going to be too close together, but also it's like you're killing the section around that area. Where I put a tap in, I'm gathering the xylem, okay, because that's what's coming up in the springtime. I'm gathering that sap, which is the xylem. The tree needs it. If I tap too much, the tree's not getting enough nutrients, and the tree will die. So what you're doing is girdling the tree, as they call it. So you're killing the cambium layer around the bottom of the tree. Same thing with the spittlebugs. Okay, if you get a lot of spittlebugs on one plant, so you get an infestation. Like I said, I'm seeing a lot of spittlebugs in my field, but it's not like the field is white. Okay, I'm standing in one spot here, and I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, there's one down below, 10. Okay, so I'm seeing 10 in a small radius here as far as my eyes can see here. I'm sure there's a lot more out further, but it's like not every plant is loaded with them. You have maybe 1 set of spittle, or I've seen a few with 2 sections of spittle on it. And like I said, if it's a larger section of spittle, you will get more than 1. You could. I won't say you will, but you could have more than 1 of these nymphs biting into the plant there. So it's not killing it unless you get an infestation. If you have a ton of these spittles on the plants, ton of the nymphs, maybe a bunch of the adults on the plant, it can kill the plant, but usually harmless to them. Okay, they're not extracting enough to kill the plant. So if you see spittlebugs, just leave them alone. They're just doing their own thing. They're not harming your field. They're not harming your plant. If you see a lot of them on an ornamental plant that you have, yeah, then you may want to do something about it. So it is possible it could harm the plant, but in general, no. It doesn't harm the plant at all. So last thing I want to talk about is the life cycle. Once again, the eggs are laid in the fall, usually about 100 to 200 eggs. That's a lot of eggs. Yeah, 100 to 200 eggs. They overwinter, and then they hatch in the spring. Okay, I already told you most of this, but I just wanted to let you know a few more details about it. The adults will come out anywhere from June through September. Now, depending on the species, the lifespan of them, the adult phase, will vary. Okay, some species only live about 23 days, so less than a month, whereas other species will live up to 3 months. And they can I'm thinking birds here, re-nest. No, they can have more than one egg laying at a time. So they will go through this cycle more than once during a year. Not always, but sometimes they will. So that is the life cycle of these spittlebugs. Very fascinating animals. I encourage you to get out and explore your fields and see how many spittlebugs you can find. And like I said, it's not spit. Even though some people call it frog spit, snake spit, cuckoo spit. No, it's actually urine combined with air and a sticky chemical that allows it to be sturdier and stick to the plant and the nymph itself. So get out there, look for those, explore your field. I mean, I'm just loving exploring my field, not just for spittlebugs. That was my purpose this morning, was to, just kind of explore the spittlebugs. But I've got the birds calling. It's a beautiful morning. The tree swallows are flying around just over the top of the field, catching insects for the babies. I've got babies in probably about 6 or 7 of my nest boxes. I've got red-winged blackbirds calling. I've got some other birds up in the trees. I was here in the field, sparrow calling. I was seeing some other insects. Some moths were flying around. Lots of plants are in bloom right now. So yeah, it's just a beautiful day to be out, but in my opinion, just about every day is a beautiful day to be outdoors. So I hope you enjoyed listening to the podcast. Don't forget, rate and review, invite friends, and go to my website, which is thenaturewanderer.com or naturewanderer.org. Find out more about what I do, find out more about my educational programs, and don't forget to check out my Ko-Fi page. Trying to buy some new equipment for better sound quality. I also donate some of, if I get a lot of donations, part of that gets donated to planting trees. I'm going to continue to do that, so keep donating to the podcast. And all of the information you want to know in the show notes, so check out the show notes. And I have great nature journals at this time of year. It's great to get outside and start journaling all that you're finding out in nature. I have some guided nature journals for the young ones, or the young ones at heart too. So above all, keep exploring the nature around you. Have a great day, everybody.
Did you know that plastic is made with oil, a fossil fuel that pollutes the environment? And did you know that only about 15% of all plastic is recycled into new products? Wouldn't it be awesome if we could live our lives without plastic so that we could stop harming the planet? Well, there's a company that wants to help you do just that. Life Without Plastic sells products that will reduce or eliminate your dependence on plastic. They have a large selection from toothbrushes to food storage containers to drinking straws, all plastic free. And it's reasonably priced. So what are you waiting for? Check out all these great plastic-free products and help save the planet. Just click on the link in the show notes to find out more and to start your journey to being plastic-free.